Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Smite Pro League. Today is opening day, kickoff, launch, whatever you want to call it. It's your first time you're going to get to see some of the maximum potential of the European squads.
First matchup we have of the day is going to be CycloneGG against Fantastique. A lot of newer players for both of these teams coming on board.
Absolutely. We're going to see some of the newest players really take the field today. Should be very exciting. Fantastique, we've seen the core of these guys featuring some new players. And then CycloneGG, pretty much just a raw band of rookies. Following that, we'll see Thanatos take on Leftovers, HFM bouncing back from DreamHack against Cringe Crew, and then, of course, the final match of the day, perhaps one of the most exciting ones today, Panthera taking on Paradigm.
Number 1 versus number 2 should always be a great way to end off the day, but first, we're going to get to CycloneGG versus Fantastique, and I'm expecting a lot of action in the duo lane specifically.
Yeah, I mean, as we look at the guys on Fantastique, I mean, I mentioned the core coupled with some newer players. The core is that Myrmidon squad. You've got MoGoW in the short lane and then the long lane, the dual lane. It's the Bruise Brothers. Dardez coupled with Jermain really put a lot of people on guard as far as the last season went, as far as the split before that went. We've seen these guys come in and out of the Pro League. Now they'll be coupled with WorldEdit, formerly known as Wlfy, and nulisa as they make their first shot in the SPL.
And I'm looking at Kalas from CycloneGG to counteract that aggression in the duo lane, to lead his squad to better prepare themselves for that kind of aggression that we know from the Bruise Brothers.
Right. I mentioned before that the guys on CycloneGG pretty much complete rookies. Deathwalker, Ice, Wlfy, Kalas, and NBK. A couple of these names might be a little bit familiar. Wlfy's been around in the scene pretty much forever, going back to launch tournament, playing sub for the winners team solo mid, and Kalas most recently stepped in for Paradigm, playing their substitute in DreamHack Masters, which, I mean, he looked pretty good. He
definitely looked good. Filling in for Trixtank is not that good of a shoes to fill. It's very difficult, but he did the job well done that his team required of him in such a short notice. So now it's his time to really shine in this first game coming up against Fantastique.
Exactly. He took what he had and learned from the guys on Paradigm and put it together with the rest of his squad. Now he'll take the field for a team of his own. It's CycloneGG versus Fantastique, and Cyclone will have the first pick.
And I'm looking at the first pick to be possible support. We've seen a lot of Bacchus yesterday, first pick material. We've seen a lot of Fafnir bans, and knowing that Kalas is going to be the staple for CycloneGG, that's probably where they're going to be leaning towards.
Cyclone leaning on MoGoW. Odin is banned. MoGoW is a player that Europe in general really had a lot of eyes on when he first came into the league, and because of that, you know, us, the commentary staff, we felt what the community was feeling, but MoGoW kind of fell short, I think, his last time in the SPL.
Well, he's been known to play mostly the Odin, mostly the Hades, I believe, as well. So his god pool, even though we don't really see the diversity of it, we know that those are his two favorite gods. So right off the bat, CycloneGG taking that off the table, which also gives them a lot of flexibility to limit themselves to non-leap gods.
Whereas Fantastique, they're going to ban out Fafnir, which has pretty much been a standard ban across the board, a very powerful character in the right hands, of course. And the Arlong Shen, a great solo laner. We've seen flashes of him in the jungle as well. Susano will be the first choice overall for CycloneGG, just a highly mobile assassin in the jungle, and Fantastique will answer that with a tried and true duo lane. We mentioned these guys are going to be about the duo lane. The Bruise Brothers are ready to fight. It's Bacchus and hi-rez, some of the more offensive characters you can choose there.
It's going to be a lot of damage coming from that duo lane. Even on the Bacchus side of things, he's probably the top 3 maybe most damaging Guardians of all of Smite currently. So Fantastique putting a staple into their duo lane, trying to get early aggression.
And you fight fire with, well, literal fire. Eri is going to be the support most likely for that long lane for CycloneGG, and this is a good choice. I love Ares against Bacchus. If you get there first, it all matters if you get there first, you can stop the initiation from the Fat Man, and also hi-rez's got a jump of his own. Isis is chosen against Ares, as she doesn't really get hurt by the cripple too much.
That's the key issue that you brought up. Who is going to initiate first? If Ares gets caught out, he's definitely going to be taking a lot of deaths. We've seen yesterday the Ares pick against an Athena. In the first game, I believe it was, Rendozo's against Envious, where the Ares on Polar Bear Michael just wasn't that effective as opposed to the Athena setup.
We mentioned it all the time, Toli. If you get behind on an Ares has a lot of his power. He gets a lot of his threatening nature from just pure damage. And if you're behind 0-3, 0-4, you're not able to really exert that pressure with the damage. So Ares really cannot fall behind, which is why he's coupled with Susano in the jungle, should really play protector for that long lane.
With these bans coming from CycloneGG, the jungle side of things, I think they kind of forgot about Wukong. Fantastique, they have a decent composition where they could run it. Now, that would kind of pigeonhole themselves in terms of separating between magical and physical damage.
Ooh.
But now we have a spicy Thanatos pick.
I mean, that's spicy for multiple reasons. One, it's not last pick, which is interesting. Thanatos is a character that Cyclone's not going to counter pick it. It obviously hasn't been banned. This character sees very little play, so to choose it fourth, I mean, it's not first pick, but it's still interesting that it didn't wait all the way to the last choice. So Fantastique really want to leverage that solo lane and make sure that Fantastique solo laner MoGoW gets the good matchup.
It's a lot of burst damage from Fantastique, whether the Isis or the Bacchus can set up the initial crowd control.
For sure.
That Thanatos death scythe is just going to chunk away, and I'm expecting that there's going to be a lot of pressure applied onto these Ares. Also, the fact that Fantastique needed to get some crowd control immune ultimates to get away from the Ares.
Exactly, and the Thanatos will spend, like you said, the Thanatos will spend a lot of time on the Ares, who will most likely spend his time in the dual lane. I say most likely because we see another Guardian, Ymir, chosen. That will likely be the solo laner in your own very style.
It's looking like it is going to be a Ymir. Now, unfortunately, without the purple pot start at level 1, it hurts to pick a Guardian such as Ymir in that solo lane. You don't really get the effectiveness of the scaling off of his passive and off of his carpet, but it's still a decent and solid pick because of what you provide in the mid to late game team fights, to control the wall. It's just overall a great team fight pick.
I've always really enjoyed Ymir's solo lane. Solo lane is the choice for the team, and Ymir certainly going to fit that. You see Deathwalker making his SPL debut alongside a lot of these players on the field today. Deathwalker, SPL debut. Ice making his SPL debut. Wlfy, he's a starter for the first time in seemingly 3 years. Colossus representing his own team this time around. VoteNBK, the lone veteran of the CycloneGG squad, will be leading this charge. But when I say veteran, I use that term loosely. He's been here for a split, maybe. CycloneGG, very wet behind the ears, but don't let that keep you from rooting for them. They're certainly ready to fight.
They're ready to fight with their composition, just being very aggressive. They're not afraid to run this aggressive soul laner or this aggressive support. Now, it's a little bit of a high risk, high reward. It has to work out early game for Cyclone. Otherwise, they can easily fall behind, and this Thanatos can really snowball.
And likewise says the opposite. I mean, WorldEdit, previously known as Jiffy for Fnatic last time around. I mean, on this Thanatos, this is an all-in character. Either you launch out during the early game, or you really find yourself struggling, similar to the Ares on the other side. So as we said, Fantastique, a lot of these familiar names, MoGoW, Dardez, and Jermain, wind up being a big chunk of what used to be known as the Myrmidons. And then nulisa and WorldEdit, aka Jiffy, will make up a little bit of that, and we'll see how these guys come into the SPL this time around. But as our players make it to the lanes, welcome to the European SPL. It's the fall split, everybody fighting for worlds.
Isis versus Vulcan in the mid lane. Looking at their relic selection, Vulcan wants to be able to survive against Thanatos, picking up that Sanctuary, which is going to prevent that execute.
Yeah, Thanatos will come down in two different ways. Early game, don't expect too much of the execute. It's about the initiation. And early game, Ymir can certainly start swinging. Look at the damage.
This is why you go Ymir solo lane. Just like that, you're basically the only Guardian that can realistically bully any warrior in the solo lane.
Is it more about the surprise? Is MoGoW just like, whoa, that's a lot of damage from Ymir? Or is it actually that much damage?
It's actually that much damage because the cooldown of his carpet is 8 seconds as opposed to some Wukong's abilities, which are 10 seconds off of his first and second ability. Now, the issue is, imagine that the Ymir had the purple pot there. That Sun Wukong would be that much more punished. But this gives the Ymir a little bit more flexibility, having more potions now.
And he'll have a little bit more survivability, and of course, doesn't have to worry about I mean, you always got to worry about dying early, but not as much here in the solo lane. As far as our dual lane is concerned, Cyclone, again, I mean, this is very aggressive. Fight fire with fire. Anhur, one of the classic choices for aggression, paired with Ares. I mean, it doesn't get much more aggressive than that. If it does, you might call it Bacchus Ho-Yi.
And Jermain, recognizing the aggression that's going to happen in this duel lane, he's electing to go for the Death Toll and the lifesteal build right off the bat. He wants to be able to stay in this lane as long as possible.
A lot of times you'll see the Ho-Yis opt for the Transcendence build instead, but as you said, not only anticipating the aggression right here in the dual lane, but also later on might need some of that lifesteal. Early aggression coming out from Fantastique, jumped right on top of Colossus, but obviously Hunter not in range, so Jermain unable to make it happen. There's our first ultimate of the game, and nulisa will be safe after dropping the Circle of Protection.
It seemed iceicebabyy probably initiated in the mid lane, found a pull onto nulisa, was expecting a sort of an all-in commitment in the mid lane, so wanted to play it rather safe than sorry, just dropping that Circle of Protection down on herself.
Good clear coming out from the guys on Fantastique. Again, this is an early game pressure unit, and they're being pressured. A Cyclone with the Vulcan and the Susano are actually the ones pushing up against Fantastique's tower, which is kind of surprising here. I think Isis and Thanatos as early game as you can get.
It's pretty strong early game, but if you add the supports into the equation to the 3-on-3, I would give the edge to Bacchus here, because the Ares doesn't really have Blink. He was forced to use Shell in a little earlier engagement, so now once he rotates, he won't have that if there's a team fight for these left side mid-harpies that are about to respawn.
You can see players really just fighting for the wave. Love this play coming out from Fantastique. There's the knock up, the burp, and the shot. Jermain starts the season with a first blood in the 2v2. Well done, Fantastique.
I like the idea that VoteNBK had. He tried to put up the pillar that would prevent the ricochet from connecting onto the Ares, but instead he should have probably looked for the Impale instead.
And then as classic as it comes, the stuff after the stuff. One kill leads to a clean invade. Cyclone has no chance to defend against that red buff invade. This one a little bit different. 2 players surrounding the Anhur. Knockup is strong on Jermain. 3 players. Wlfy finds the shot and answers back. Cyclone find a kill.
Unfortunately, trading the life of a Hunter for support, going in the way of Cyclone. Now, the purification was slightly delayed by Jermain. Didn't expect the Typhoon to come from behind. Really great presence of mind to rotate over from iceicebabyy.
And that was just a little bit, that was spending too much time in the jungle. Fantastique got the kill and then went right for the red buff invade. That is textbook, that is picaresque, but spending too much time there, well, that's a problem.
But VoteNBK, he had the right idea because he was baiting it. Look from behind, he's going to catch the Bacchus with the ultimate, and the Vulcan ultimate's going to connect. That's going to be a second kill.
Now that, when you say textbook, that's the one you actually put in the textbook. I mean, Colossus comes with the fantastic positioning around the top, gets the ultimate, pulls the Bacchus, nothing he can do, and then all of the abilities just pile right on top. Love the choice of the pillar as well.
And that's the beauty of Smite, that you can find those ganks from behind. You basically don't see that coming unless you see them with a ward in the jungle. But this early on, there's no real wards passively yet.
I mean, Dardez jumps there, right? He belly flops after he gets hit. He knows from second one that he's worm food. There's no way for him to escape right there, but just Dardez falls down.
And that's why sometimes the supports will get purification to try to negate those big initiations.
Specifically the Bacchus and the Ares.
Yes, to counter those kinds of ultimates from the Ares. You don't necessarily want to get pulled in, especially the early game, because that'll allow a lot of snowball potential. So that's a strategy that Cyclone could potentially try to exploit from Fantastique. Just keep pulling this Bacchus.
I mean, we saw Ymir do it all last split. Their entire, not their entire, but the majority of their strategy was based around abusing a crowd control immune list support. If they don't have purification or an ultimate like Ymir's or whatnot, that's going to run into some trouble. So a lot of attention paid to that support. I expect the same here.
Fantastic. They're now grouping up as 3. The Bacchus, Isis, and Thanatos are going to be able to do a lot of damage, but they have to find somebody.
And they're going to find Anhur. Jump, and everybody follows up. Dardez gets the kill, but it's off of the damage from mid and jungle. WorldEdit certainly ready to fight some more. Kalas is here, throws the ult down, pulls into Jermain in trouble. Couple of hits will secure it. There's the jungle, but a heal from the mid lane saves Jermain's life. All the way from the solo lane comes Deathwalker, but nothing comes of it. Well done, nulisa.
Overall, just a 1 kill for Fantastique. They're going to reset, not really much to go off of. The Thanatos ultimate was held on to use the purification instead of using the ultimate for that Ares ultimate. So I like the idea. Now Fantastique, they still have an aggressive play with WorldEdit's ultimate.
And nulisa drops the ultimate, and it's not just her. She drops the ultimate to help save Jermain's life, but it's also the positioning of the squad, making sure to play bodyguard, almost like a wall in soccer. Football, excuse me, European fans. And that really allowed that Jermain to live. On the other hand, nulisa falls down to Kalas. A lot of damage coming out from VoteNBK's ultimate on the other side of the rock. Great battlefield vision.
This is the issue with invading with Isis. MoGoW going to take a lot of damage from the Ymir ultimate. It is level 2 at the moment, but not enough mana to really get the kill. But Susano should be able to clean this up.
Yeah, MoGoW running around here. It's pretty much just inevitable whether you wait for Deathwalker's cooldowns or Susano actually makes it happen. Somebody's going to get the kill onto MoGoW. iceice still waiting it out. MoGoW still safe for the moment, but again, finally coming down with the kill. iceice puts number 4 on the board for Cyclone.
Very aggressive play, trying to invade this speed buff. Was successful in terms of preventing iceice from picking it up, but now he's going to lose his own blue buff, and that's going to hurt because he's a level behind Deathwalker.
And when it comes to these particular solo laners, that blue buff is important. When you look at Sun Wukong, he's a spam character. He does well by just using his abilities over and over again. Without that blue buff, that hurts him.
And just going to be able to be a bigger bully now is Deathwalker, but Fantastique electing to start up the Gold Fury. It seems that Cyclone were not in position quite yet.
Yeah, no one's really around. VoteNBK just sort of watching as this one goes down. Gold Fury to Fantastique, and a big play, a big part of what allows that to happen is having nulisa's ultimate available. When it comes to Isis, that is one of the oldest tricks in the book when it comes to going for those early objectives.
Well, at least Cyclone are trying to get something out of this. They find the red buff. They're going to find the pull onto Dardez, but do they have the damage?
Just a little bit, half HP on the Guardian, but he's surrounded, he's stunned, and there's the final hit. VoteNBK takes the kill. Well done, Cyclone. And that was just, we're seeing this time and time again. WorldEdit gets knocked up. There's the Vulcan ultimate, too far, but iceice just close enough. Wlfy finishes off nulisa. 2 kills for the team in that exchange, and Cyclone will go ahead and look towards the tower.
This is what you have to do when you concede the Gold Fury. You recognize that these ultimate abilities were used, the circular protection, which is huge, the Bacchus intoxicate on top. So now you're trying to figure out a way what you can take in response. So we take the red buff, we take 2 of your lives, and we're going to take the tier 1 mid.
And a lot of that comes off of the resources used during the Gold Fury. Isis, one of the oldest tricks in the book when it comes to early objectives, but then it's gone. Then that ultimate is gone for the next team fight. We saw Cyclone do that, and something that I absolutely love that's coming out of the dual lane specifically for Cyclone. Kalas gets the pull with the ultimate, and VoteNBK immediately follows up with the pillar.
He knows that there is going to be a guaranteed pull onto that Bacchus without the purification, without having that crowd control immune ultimate, so you're already setting up for the kill. You want to slow down Dardez as much as possible, amplify your damage, and find the quick and easy kill. And looking at the side of Fantastique, they don't have that much escape between the Isis and the Thanatos.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much escape on those 2 characters. MoGoW, of course, has the ultimate, which is perhaps one of the better escapes. It's basically a free life, but nulisa and WorldEdit will run into issues. Isis specifically on nulisa, she just doesn't have an exit path. She doesn't have an exit strategy. There's no movement ability. It's really just, she has to play offensively to be defensive. You have to find that silence or the stun.
And that's why she got picked off earlier on during that red buff invade. There was just nowhere for her to go. Even though Fantastique was successful, you always have to have an escape strategy, and that's something that Thanatos has with his ultimate, but unfortunately for nulisa, she doesn't have that same luxury.
Wasn't the option available. Kalas looking to make another play here in the mid lane. You can see him always targeting this Bacchus, but as soon as he walks over the ward, everybody knows. Bacchus jumps behind him. There's the ultimate. Look for the pillar. Followed right up. There's the damage over the top. Knocked up as well. Kalas gets the last hit off of the ultimate from everybody else. Wlfy's going to get landed on by WorldEdit. Down comes Thanatos. Sanctuary saves the day, and WorldEdit can't find the hit, and now he's surrounded, being over-aggressive. Jungle on the side of Cyclone surrounding Fantastique. Fantastiques. And WorldEdit's going to fall down again. 2 deaths for the early Thanatos, while Colossus gets credit.
Fantastic. They don't have the advantage now. It's going to be up to Cyclone to extend this. They are a little low, though. Colossus and Wlfy is specifically. So Wlfy had to back. There's no tier 1 mid towers, and the speed buff is potentially an option. iceicebabyy, though, they have a ward around the red buff. They see that it's respawning, but they're electing not to push their advantage quite yet.
Yeah, just a little bit afraid. Players want to back and spend their gold that they've already used. You can see the junglers having a or the jungle on the side of Cyclone, rather, having a fantastic game. WorldEdit on this Thanatos not really showing up. 0-2-1. Now, it's not too late for the Thanatos. We did stress that this is an early game character, but here it's coming into dire straits. WorldEdit needs to make something happen, and it needs to happen soon.
So the plan of Fantastic was to group up as 3 between this composition we see right here on your screen and find those easy kills. They did it onto VoteNBK earlier on, but they couldn't find anyone else ever since that point in time.
And really, when it comes down to it, why is that? Is Cyclone just positioning themselves a little bit better? From where I'm looking at, it's all about Colossus. Colossus is just getting the better of all of these situations by getting there first.
It just seems that sometimes Fantastic are overstepping their boundaries. They find the red buff invade, nulisa gets picked off. They find the Gold Fury, 3 members, and the tier 1 tower gets picked off. And CycloneGG have just been in the right place at the right time.
That's a small pick that you can take home to your own games, watching Deathwalker right there. Stopping the back of MoGoW with the wall. Doesn't do any damage, but does the job.
Just a displacement alone, whether it's the Ymir, the Thor, or the Anhur obelisk, you're going to be able to reposition the enemy, and that's something that you can also do to body block if there's a situation where you know the enemy's going to dash, right? So you just put up the wall to negate that dash completely. They have nowhere to go. They just wasted an ability, and then more than likely going to die immediately after.
It's extra hilarious if it's a Mercury ultimate.
Or a Habwa ult.
Yes, we've seen that a couple of times. Recently, Habwa winds up ulting into a pillar in the Smite Console League, so that was a lot of fun. That was a hunter playing Habwa. That's a different story for a different time. But either way, geometry and items that come out, player deployables, wind up being a lot of fun. And there's a lot of clever things you can go ahead and do with those abilities. But Cyclone, they've got a huge lead. And it's really not anything off of anything clever. As far as the kills are concerned, it's very big. But everything else seems about even. And I got to say, that caught me by surprise.
Their kills are a little bit misleading because they're up 7 kills, but they don't have that much gold or experience over Fantastic because of that Gold Fury. And they're going to try it again, or at least they're going to find the ward. They're going to position themselves for another, maybe a quick kill.
Yeah, we saw Cyclone trying to be sneaky, or Fantastic trying to be sneaky last time, and Cyclone was able to sniff that out. nulisa is going to see the rotation coming out from solo lane. There's a stun onto the Ymir, but the wall's already put up. Ultimate coming out from the Yi drops down. Same with Vulcan, off the mark. Colossus has one. He's going to grab it right on top. There's the damage, and way out goes Fantastic. Everybody on the retreat. WorldEdit lands a scythe, big damage. Deathwalker gets a freeze. Over the top comes the save, and everybody from Fantastic, they've got the right positioning, but Cyclone are ready to come into this fight again.
All the ultimates are off the table with the exception of Deathwalker now, so these teams are a little low. This Ymir wall is the crucial factor to Cyclone's strategy in these team fights, whereas Fantastic, they're more about like setting up their crowd control. You have the Bacchus and the Isis trying to find the long distance poke for Jermain, WorldEdit, and MoGoW, and it's more beneficial for Cyclone.
Very important there that Fantastic, again, that was the same recipe that Cyclone used to win all of their previous team fights. Fantastic finally adjust and take Dardez and put him elsewhere when Colossus show up. Now, the Gold Fury being aggressed on by the guys on Cyclone. Dardez chased over the wall. Gold Fury already 50%.
And just like that, you force a blink, you force the Sanctuary. Now Deathwalker doing a great job zoning out 3. nulisa going to die on the right-hand side to VoteNBK. Gold Fury is going to get reset, and this is what Cyclone wants to do. They recognize the presence of this Ymir.
And he's working out so well, able to zone, able to use damage. 4 players on the board, and one of them's back at base for Fantastic. Cyclone used all the pressure in the world to allow themselves to go ahead and pick up a Gold Fury. So 1 Gold Fury per team, but Cyclone are the team that's in the lead right now, 2,000 above Fantastic.
Now the question is, how can they extend this lead? They're currently a level ahead between their middle and jungler, so they have to be able to continue to pair up like this. Cyclone, they've never been really caught out of position with the exception of VoteNBK around the boards, where we saw that triple gank from Fantastique. So as long as Cyclone keeps sticking together like this and catch maybe WorldEdit or nulisa with the Ymir wall, they should be able to get the next important objective.
And Deathwalker, I mean, like you said, the Ymir wall certainly allowed that the last time around. And really, Deathwalker has been the biggest part of this game in my eyes. Only 4 out of 10 kills has he participated in, but a lot of what you're seeing out of this Ymir doesn't wind up on that slash line. The zoning potential coming out of the walls, even some of the damage he's able to do to push the players out. Getting frozen by Ymir when there's 4 other enemies around is one of the most scary things that can happen in Smite, so you're forcing these relic choices.
We saw that for Sanctuary out of Jermain earlier on, and just because Deathwalker only has the shoes of the Mad Guy, that's all he really needs. As long as he has the cooldowns from the Breastplate of Valor, the defenses as well, and the regen coming from the Stone of Gaia, he's going to be so efficient in these teamfights, constantly putting up the walls, constantly creating such a zoning potential with just the fear of his freeze.
And I love the choice of the Stone of Gaia. Now, you might get that lucky tick. I'm gonna say this works well against the Thanatos. You might get that lucky tick that stops you from getting executed like a meditation, but that's not what it's about. Once you're in execution range, you will slowly tick out of that range. Nobody wants to sit there, because then you pretty much have to back. That's the threat of the Thanatos, so allowing Deathwalker to build some HP 5 is a good choice. Left side tower being aggressed on, good Ho-Yi ultimate, and Fantastique will stay put.
But Cyclone, they don't really care about that. They forced the Hu-Yi ultimate, and now Deathwalker's making the rotation, forcing out the bird form from MoGoW, and this could be a great engage for Cyclone without that great zoning ulti.
There is still Circle of Protection available, which is a big deal. Basically, Jermain and nulisa will use their ultimates in the same idea. When Cyclone come and aggress, you'll see one of those giant circles drop down.
Deathwalker looking for the blink, gonna find it onto Jermain and the purification, and now this is gonna allow Callus to maybe find the ultimate.
And there's nulisa from the back, throwing out the stun. 2 players get pulled. Dardez and Jermain in a lot of trouble. Down goes the Circle of Protection. That'll save Fantastique one more time. MoGoW knocks up underneath the tower. WorldEdit in some trouble, avoids the chain, and that's good. Fantastique 2 times in a row defend their tower, but look at that play.
They're forcing all the members into the tier 2 tower, having to back. They need to come back quick if they want to defend the tier 2.
Nope.
And I love the idea that MoGoW, he picked up the purification during the freeze of that engagement. Had he not had the purification, he would have been guaranteed dead.
And right there you see Cyclone able to Fantastique defend against their tier 2 tower, but they use, as I said, the Ho-Yi ultimate came out first, and then the Circle of Protection came out second. After that, there's no other tools. Cyclone know that, and they push up. What I love, though, is the sending of 2 players into the jungle to chase underneath the tier 1 tower, because Fantastique, they might have been able to hang out and throw some projectiles, but by sending players on the flank, there's just no way.
And something we didn't touch on earlier was the fact that iceicebabyy was positioning himself between the red buff and the board. He got off that sentry ward, found the counter. Isis was trying to maybe stun him out and delay that, but couldn't connect onto that spirit ball, so that allowed iceicebabyy the vision and the space control, and therefore Fantastique, they had to give that positioning up.
Yeah, iceicebabyy, 100% kill participation on the Susano jungle. Certainly a big part of what's allowed Cyclone to really find their lead as far as kills are concerned. I think the objective side lead comes from Deathwalker, and that's really the combination that you want to find. Callus is really leading a lot of the initiation, the damage coming from VoteNBK and Wlfy, iceicebabyy allowing to get his kit to use some of that displacement, and then Deathwalker just putting a bottle cap on top of everything, making sure Fantastique don't get what they want.
And this seems like a first pick material god, and that's exactly what Cyclone did. They first picked the Susano, having this kind of effect in this. You have a lot of flexibility with Susano. You can be aggressive, you can just wait in the backline whenever you want to, but WorldEdit on the Thanatos doesn't have the same options that iceicebabyy has on the Susano.
Right, WorldEdit needs to be aggressive early on, and then late we'll see him turn into an ultimate bot, but right now Jermain, there's nowhere for him to go. Stunned with 6 different abilities. He'll find a kill. 11 kills in total for Cyclone, as Jermain just out a little too far without a paddle, a ward, or a teammate.
That's correct. There's no ward on the side of the dual lane. The Gold Fury is up as well. It's something that you need to have, because even if you can't team fight in this spot, at least know where the enemy is at all times. Maybe zoning them out, maybe delaying them as long as you can. Maybe find that miracle steal with your ultimate.
Who knows? Right now, Fantastique certainly going to hope for that miracle steal. Cyclone starting up the Gold Fury for the 2nd time around. Nobody anywhere. Poor Collis. He's sitting there waiting for somebody to come in. Nobody shows up. Gold Fury, again, it goes the way of Cyclone. Lack of vision, lack of preparation. Either way, Fantastique had no idea.
No, not at all. But you say feel bad for Collis, but he was still doing his job. He's doing the guard duty that he needs to. If anyone was there, they were going to get chained. No possible way for them to enter. And now, after the Gold Fury's been down at the 21 minutes, all eyes on the Fire Giant.
But with that said, I mean, every guard wants excitement. Nobody wants a boring post. Ares just sat there doing nothing for a while. I'm sure he would have rathered start a fight.
Well, especially considering the fact that Cyclone are ahead.
Exactly.
And the way that Callis has been playing off of Deathwalker, he expects Deathwalker to be the aggressor because of the blink. And that allows this Ares to pick up the meditation after the shell.
So far, 21.5 on the clock, 11-2. This one seems rather one-sided. Cyclone certainly leading by a slew of kills. And gold as well. 7,000 in the lead is Cyclone.
They're positioning around the blue buff of the enemy. They want to find somebody out of position. They could easily get this tier 1 tower. As the rest of Fantastique, they're going to rotate on over. We see left lane, iceicebabyy just grabbing the board, going to make his rotation over. So if Fantastique recognize this, they could take advantage.
Not going to be the choice, though, despite the numbers advantage. You can see MoGoW getting aggressed on. He'll get knocked up as well, thanks to the Vulcan. But WorldEdit just defending the tower. No real threat coming out from either of these guys. But looking in the distance, interesting itemization choice coming out from the Vulcan player. You can see that bubble around him. That's going to be your Magi's Blessing. It'll absorb one hard CC ability coming out from the side of Fantastique. Who is this really targeted towards?
It's mostly for the Bacchus. You don't want to get knocked up because there's going to be a lot of guaranteed follow-up damage while you're in the air. The Thanatos Death Scythe, the Spirit Ball coming out of Nulisa. It's just going to be too much for Vulcan to handle.
Fantastique with the flank, trying to stop Cyclone's onslaught up here in the right-hand lane. There's two players stuck in the jungle, and it's a 4-on-4 fest in the lane itself. Fantastique dropped Jermain's ultimate. Cyclone back up a little bit, but not completely out. I feel like we've seen this one before, Toli.
We've seen the ultimate from Jermain before, but on the flip side, Wlfy used his ultimate. Didn't really connect on a lot of members from Fantastique, so I would say it's a slight edge for Fantastique trading those ultimates.
Right now, trying to stay in a good defensive position. Fantastique underneath their tier 2 tower. Collis drops some vision.
Great body block, making sure that there's no way to get your own sentry ward down.
There's a good wall coming out from Ymir. Freeze as well. The rest of Cyclone on the right side, but ultimately no real big fight. WorldEdit caught out just a little bit, forced into the ultimate, and that not a good play for Fantastique. At this point in the game, that Thanatos really needs to be able to find some executes, and if he keeps being forced into the defensive ult, not going to happen.
Just great initiation from Deathwalker, forcing the purification, and look at this, Jermain's going to get pulled in by Callis.
He's got the Sanctuary activated, but still takes a ton of damage after the fact, jumps out later, and still finds himself in trouble as Deathwalker dives to tower a little bit. Good knockup, but everybody on Fantastique alive, hurt, but alive. I stress hurt because they'll be pushed off the tower and tier 2 goes down.
Nulisa is very hurt. She's going to probably fall here. iceicebabyy finding the kill. Now having to retreat in the left lane. More than likely going to escape because of the mobility from the Susano, especially with the speed buff. Now, even though they didn't find the kill onto Jermain, it was pretty much great enough to get the tower.
And tier 2 being aggressed on as well. Fantastique with a strong flank. Here comes WorldEdit, low HP. Wlfy tosses the ultimate, takes out MoGoW with the help of VoteNBK. Well done, as iceicebabyy continues the onslaught. You can see both players on Fantastique very low. Wlfy brings with a 0, stunned, and Jermain falls down as well if no VoteNBK can find it. And he will. 16 in total. And Cyclone will get 1,500 gold from this tower. And with nobody threatening them, they're able to push forward onto the Phoenix.
With 3 seconds to respawn for Nulisa, this is great pressure that Cyclone have been applying, utilizing their mobility, their flexibility, their space control. They've just been utilizing all these mechanics within their god kits to kind of hurt WorldEdit and Nulisa's lack of mobility and escapes.
Exactly. We haven't really seen much out of Nulisa over WorldEdit the entire game, unfortunately. We saw a great use of the ultimate from Isis very early on for the first gold fear of the game. But since then, Cyclone has, like you said, used the pressure to keep Isis and Thanatos just completely out of this game.
And unfortunately for Fantastique, Jermain seems to be the focus fire between Deathwalker and Colossus. Deathwalker blinks in, forces the purification, Colossus pulls him in shortly afterwards, and having to get out of the team fight, which allowed the tier 2 tower on the right to fall.
Right now, I mean, looking at Colossus coming over here to the right side, trying to get the chain. Just a little bit too late, but he's leading the charge of his own. Fire Giant has been taken in the interim, and Cyclone ready to fight. Huge lead. Fire Giant, nothing really standing in their way.
14,000 gold ahead at the moment. They're going to push on the right-hand side. They really have no fear at this point in time. Their strategy is really clean. It's expected, but there's nothing that Fantastique can do about it. They're just too far behind.
I mean, it's a 10,000 plus gold lead, and really when you hit 10,000, you can take any fight you really choose to. When you hit 15,000, you can do the same and have a good time with it. And right now, Cyclone starting it up. The blink gets knocked up. Excellent play by MoGoW to disrupt the initiation. That might help Fantastique. Left side, WorldEdit tosses some damage, silences out the Ymir, but it's just not enough. Fantastique push Cyclone off. No kills are found, but they do defend the spot.
Great hold, and on top of that, the purification was still saved from Jermain. He didn't worry about the damage output. It looks like there's just conceding the right side Phoenix.
Fantastique have both of their good defensive ultimates available, not going to be used. Instead, VoteNBK takes out MoGoW. The Hou-Yi ultimate comes out way after the fact. Cyclone have the numbers. It's 5-on-4. The entire team will shift to the left side, the only Phoenix that remains.
And that should be the last one, as it's going to be more than likely the Titan room. The middle wave is going to start flooding in with the fire minions. Deathwalker still looking to zone a nice little death side onto Wlfy, but with that Fire Giant buff, it's going to regen him pretty well.
And there's Susano starting things up, throwing a knock-up right into the Titan room. Cyclone looking like they want to finish this one and finish it now. Colossus grabs one. There's the follow-up damage. Not okay. WorldEdit finds a kill onto iceicebabyy. That might be able to snowball, but VoteNBK takes out Dardez. Titan still dealing damage, but ultimately it will fall down. Game 1 goes to Cyclone.
Just great strategy by Cyclone. I love their picks all throughout. They utilize the Obelisk and the Ymir wall effectively against this Isis and Thanatos that just don't have an escape.
Yeah, I mean, Ymir came out absolutely on top in the clutch. Isis and Thanatos love the choices, weren't able to find that early game pressure that composition really dictates.
We saw it onto VoteNBK when the Bacchus rotated as well, but they couldn't make it a second or a third repeat. They found the Gold Fury, but they just got picked off too much. And with that one win, they're going to accumulate 1 point at least for now.
Right, and if you're just joining us for the fall split and missed some of the things we did during the summer, we're changing things up. 2-game sets is what we're going to take a look at. Should you win both games in the set, you net yourself 3 points. However, if y'all split down the middle, it's 1 point for each. So right now, Cyclone, they've got 1 point. That's what that little yellow mark means. And if they wind up taking the next game as well, that bar will be filled up. Otherwise, we'll see another yellow notch on the other side. Biggest issue for Fantastique in that game. Go.
I would say that they picked up Thanatos as the 7th pick for them, well, 7th pick overall, the 4th pick for them, and they didn't really make it work. I would say that Ao Kuang was open, and I know Jiffy loves the Ao Kuang. He could have probably synergized a little bit better because you have the water illusion to escape. You also have your ultimate to knock up somebody if they're sticking onto you. So just got to switch up the jungler pick.